Have you ever wondered what makes a game truly great? It's not always the graphics or the story. Today, we're diving into the invisible art that separates a game you can't put down from one you just quit in frustration. Come on, we've all been there, right? You're playing a game and you just hit this wall. Or maybe worse, you find that one move, that one character, that one cheap strategy that's so good there's literally no reason to do anything else. That feeling? That mix of frustration and, honestly, boredom? That's not a mistake you're making. It's a failure of a really crucial design principle. And that principle is called game balancing. This isn't some happy accident. It's a deliberate, careful craft of making a game feel fair, keeping it engaging, and making sure that at the end of the day, your skill is what really counts. You could say it's the secret ingredient that makes a game genuinely fun.
So, what do we actually mean when we talk about a well-balanced game? It's way more than just, making sure each side starts with the same number of pieces on the board. Let's break down what those core qualities really are.
Okay, so a balanced game gives you meaningful choices. That means no single option should always be the right one. It also makes sure that your skill is what shines, not just blind luck. It has to give every single player a fair shot right from the start, and, this is a big one, a real chance to make a comeback if they're falling behind. And finally, it should never, ever trap you in a situation where nobody can possibly win.
Now, of all the things that can throw a game out of whack, there's one major villain. It's this one big bad that designers are always fighting against. It's the #1 enemy of interesting gameplay and, well, the enemy of fun itself. And it's called the dominant strategy. This is a strategy that's so powerful, so effective, that once you figure it out, there is absolutely no incentive to do anything else. It just makes every other choice, every other cool weapon or unit the designers spent months creating, totally pointless. The whole depth of the game just evaporates. And believe me, this isn't just theory. Just think about the infamous tank rush in the original Command & Conquer, where just building a massive swarm of cheap tanks as fast as possible was pretty much a guaranteed win. Or in fighting games, remember Akuma's air fireball in Street Fighter? It was so broken, he was literally banned from tournaments. These are real-world dominant strategies that almost ruin the experience for everyone.
So how in the world do designers beat this enemy? Well, they've got a pretty powerful toolkit, and two of their most basic weapons are the careful design of relationships between things and the clever use of costs.
To get this right, designers have to think about two different kinds of relationships. On the one hand, you have a transitive relationship. Think of it like a ladder. If A is better than B and B is better than C, well, A is always the best. That's a dominant strategy right there. But then you have an intransitive relationship. This is more like a circle. A beats B, B beats C, but then C beats A. Suddenly, there's no single best option. And the perfect classic example of that balance loop is, of course, rock, paper, scissors. It's a perfectly balanced game because for every single choice, there's a perfect counter. This simple little circle is actually the secret foundation for balancing some of the most complex games out there. Okay, that loop idea is great for things that are designed to counter each other, but what happens when one option is just objectively better? Like, if you're designing a racing game, one car is just faster, period. Or a weapon that just does more damage. How do you balance that when a simple A beats B beats C loop just doesn't fit? The answer is a really clever design tool, and it's called the shadow cost. This is a secondary, often non-obvious downside that's attached to an otherwise superior option. It creates this interesting trade-off that you might not see at first glance, making your choice a whole lot more strategic. So for example, you might have a gun that does insane damage, right? But its shadow cost is that it has a painfully slow firing rate. Or a car might be the fastest thing on the track, but its tiny fuel tank means you're going to be making way more pit stops. Even in a game like Farmville, a high-yield crop might seem like the obvious choice, but its shadow cost is that it withers really fast, so you have to be there to harvest it constantly. These hidden costs are what create real, interesting depth.
So we've covered balancing choices between players, but what about balancing the game against just you, the single player? This is the art of difficulty, and the ultimate goal here is to keep you in a very specific, almost magical psychological state.
And that state is called flow. You know this feeling. It's that sweet spot where you're so absorbed in what you're doing that time just melts away. The game isn't so hard that you get frustrated, but it's not so easy that you get bored. It's just right. Flow is where the real fun is, and good designers will bend over backwards to keep you in that state. Now, the key thing to understand is that difficulty isn't some fixed number.
It's all about perceived difficulty. How hard a challenge feels to you is basically its actual difficulty, minus how powerful and experienced you've become. This is exactly why that same monster that terrified you at the beginning of the game becomes a total pushover by the end. You got stronger.
Designers actually map this out very deliberately. This chart shows a popular method called sawtooth progression. Take a look. You see how each new level actually starts a little bit easier than the last one ended? That's on purpose. It gives you a moment to feel powerful, to master your new skills before it starts to ramp up the challenge again. It creates this really satisfying rhythm.
All right, now for the final boss of game balancing, asymmetric games. These are games where players control sides that are completely and fundamentally different from each other. And honestly, there's no better example of this done perfectly than the legendary strategy game StarCraft.
Because this is probably the most important lesson of all. Great game balance is not about making everything equal. It's not about making every unit or every character a perfect mirror of another. The real, true goal is to make every single choice a distinct, viable, and meaningful one. I mean, just look at these basic units from StarCraft's 3 races. If you just look at the raw numbers, this looks like a total disaster. A Zealot costs 4 times as much as a Zergling and is way, way stronger. So how can this possibly be balanced? It's balanced through this incredibly complex web of other factors, build times, movement speed, special abilities, that gives each and every unit a unique and vital role on the battlefield.
There's a fancy term for this idea, orthogonal unit differentiation. But all it really means is that each unit should be different in kind, not just in degree. So a healer isn't just a weaker version of a soldier. It serves a completely different purpose. This is what ensures every unit has a reason to exist, and it's what prevents any one unit from becoming the only thing you ever build.
So next time you're playing a game, I want you to think about these hidden rules. Think about the loops, the shadow costs, the difficulty curve that's guiding your experience. And then ask yourself, is your favorite game a perfect example of sterile, symmetrical balance? Or is it a beautifully complicated, messy, asymmetric machine where, just maybe, some of those little imbalances are exactly what make it so endlessly fun to figure out?